everyone. It's nice to see all of you here today. So warmly welcome to the first webinar of the Women Chemist Committee 2022-2023 Council year. So first of all, I would like to invite the retired professor of the Open University, Dr. Siddhi Iqbal, to welcome all of you.
Good evening, all of you. On behalf of the WCC, who is not able to now, first webinar of the Institute of Chemistry Ceylon Council Year 2022-2023. As you all know, this WCC was inaugurated in 2018. We have been growing strong for 4 years now. We work around the theme of the ICHEMC, which is in this year, role of chemists in achieving sustainable development goals. So WCC theme is women empowerment in chemical sciences in achieving sustainable development goals. We have actually been conducting various programs we joined, organized by the IU, going to join them next year too in February. And we also have this series of webinar for this ICHEMC Council year. This is the first one. So I'm sure you will learn more about it in days to come. Now we have competitions, each activity, charity project in collaboration with other organizations to promote STEM education in this country, particularly chemical sciences in this country. So without taking much of your time, I think I hand over to Tamudi for you to go ahead with the next set of activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. And then I would like to invite the President of the Institute of Chemistry Ceylon, Chairman of Chemical Sciences, Mr. NMS, address all of you.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Professor Piani Patnagama, Chairperson WCC, and Sitikpal, Professor Sitikpal, Dr. Nilu, Sivapragasam, Dr. Bobika, Senior Lecturer, Dr. Dinusha, Senior Lecturer, College of Chemical Sciences, members of the WCC, ladies and gentlemen. Can my one is clear? It's not clear. It's a sound is coming. Please mute others. My mic, please. Yeah. First and foremost, I wish to thank the Women's Chemistry Council, headed by its chairperson, Professor Priani Parnagama, for organizing the first webinar under the important, interesting topic, hormonal imbalances at various stages of women's life, changes and remedies. Surveys in many countries show that although almost equal numbers of men and women take chemistry undergraduate programs, ICHEMC is an exception. You can see more women are there. only about 30% of workforce in the chemical industry are women. In academia, the situation is worse with only 9% of chemistry professors being women. There is even poorer involvement of women in chemical engineering. It is necessary to change the culture, the working hours, childcare, and the handling of maternity leave, so as to make our wonderful subject attractive and accessible to all. It is timely that the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, which has proportionately a large number of women students, has already established the Women's Chemistry Committee, through which you all can interact with people of similar interest on the subject and learn much more. As you are aware, 52.1% of the Sri Lankan population consists of women and 47.9 men. Although they are engaged such as managers, judges, politicians, artists, writers, civil servants, doctors and nurses, garment workers, tea industry, and many more. Women account for only 34% of the labor force. They contribute about 29% to the national economy. One of the lowest participation rate in the region, while we know that the women's economic empowerment is so central to progress every aspect of life. Investment in their health generate large societal and economical benefit, in addition to saving lives and improving quality of life. You know, meeting women's health needs and eliminating gender inequality are moral imperatives and fundamental needs of their economic empowerment. Healthy women tend to be more productive in the paid workforce as well as their unpaid work, which include contributions to family economic activities and disproportionate share of child rearing and care for elderly or sick family members and domestic work. By investing in empowerment of women, we not only make progress on Goal 5 of Sustainable Development Goal of United Nations Agenda 2030, in which Institute has already embarked on a series of programs. We also make gains on elevation of poverty and increase sustainable economic growth. Today, the subject of this webinar, which is related to women's health, will be important for you to enhance your knowledge on hormonal imbalances at various stages of your life, maintaining your health, and thus you can engage your work or economic activities and continue daily family life smoothly. Someone will say like this, you know, I am not the energetic, outgoing person I used to be. I've lost my fun side. I'm moody, irritable, angry, and sad. And on certain days, I have all of these emotions within 10 minutes. Someone will say like that, my mind is not sharp like it was. I feel like I'm in a brain fog. Focusing is nearly impossible. Other people remember things so much than I do. I feel like I'm that crazy, the girl I used to make fun of all the time. I have lost my motivation. Someone will say, I have lost my motivation for everything I used to really care about. I don't want to see my friends or go events, just want to hide at home. The hallmark of sometimes symptoms of these adrenaline imbalances are stress, fatigue that is not elevated with the sleep. Just tired all the time. Really. Sometimes too much stress raises control, output, cortisol output, interfering with calcium absorption and bone building activity, while at the same time stepping up the activity of bone destroying cells. Hypothyroidism or low thyroid will affect 26% women or near menopause. Low thyroid levels tend to cause unwanted gain, depression, or overaging. So, which all due to hormonal imbalance. Today, you have an important opportunity to find out reason for these expressions. The lifestyle approach is to this hormonal imbalance is very important. Change in lifestyle, eat a heart-healthy diet, and at least 5 portions, 2 or 3 portion calcium-rich foods. reduce caffeine and alcohol, maintain or take steps and achieve healthy body weight, take regular moderate exercise, weight bearing exercise. If you think you might want to take a nutritional supplement, yes, sometime on advice of dietitian or doctor. Therefore, hormones out of control. Therefore, we have to have so many problems with us. Then today, all these things, over to the speaker. Thank you very much for inviting me to address the words. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Senior Lecturer, College of Chemical Sciences, Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, Dr. Dinusha Udukala, to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Kamudi. Am I audible?
Yes, madam.
Dr. Nilu is a scientist whose work interfaces nanomaterials, food physical chemistry, and human nutrition. She obtained her bachelor's from the Open University of Sri Lanka and the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon. Afterwards, she moved to the United States to pursue her master's and PhD in nanomaterial chemistry in food and nutraceutical industry at the North Dakota State University. Soon after her PhD, she joined the University of Wisconsin-Madison to do her postdoctoral research work on food physical chemistry, funded by the United States Department of Agriculture. Dr. Nilu is also an author of the book Know Your Diets, where she features the evidence-based diets on human health and longevity. She has obtained her master's certification in Ayurveda and is a certified emotional intelligence coach. Besides her research, she cooperates on health and longevity around the world, mainly North America, Singapore, Malaysia, UK, Maldives, and Indonesia, and tailor programs based on the type of industries. Furthermore, she also works with women to address and reverse hormonal issues and enhance mental wellness through the integrated approach. In addition, consultant for a few food startups to take benchtop work to industry scale. With no further delay, let's welcome Dr. Nilu to present her talk on hormonal imbalances at various stages of a woman's life, changes, and remedies. Over to you, Dr. Nilu.
Thank you, Dr. Dinusha, for that wonderful introduction. Kamudi, can you make me a co-host to share the screen? Am I visible and audible?
Yes, madam. And we can see the screen.
Sure. Okay, thank you everyone for joining our talk today. And today I'll be talking about hormonal imbalances at various stages of women's life, the changes as well as remedies. Now, you may be wondering why we're talking about women specifically, like when it comes to hormonal changes, why are we more focused on women? So we women deal with a cocktail of hormones, unlike men. And I think because of that, back years ago, John Gray came up with a book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And for anyone who has read the book, you will know that the reflections, the clear distinction of the attitudes of the man and women can be easily traced back to the hormones that we deal with. And another reason we are talking about women or focusing on women today is because the month of October is considered as the breast cancer awareness month, and also it's the World Menopause Month. So the global breast cancer statistics says just in 2020, 2.26 million new cases were recorded, whereas 685,000 deaths were recorded in the same year. And unfortunately, this is the leading cause of cancer in low developed countries and also the second most cause of cancer after lung cancer in the world. And again, unfortunately, every 14 seconds, at least one woman is being diagnosed with breast cancer. And when it comes to menopause, it's an inevitable period in a woman's life, and nearly yearly 50 million women, whether they like it or they don't like it, they enter the stage of menopause. And the age can vary between 40 and 53. It depends on their socioeconomic status, it depends on their lifestyle practices, as well as the geographic location, and also it relates to their inheritance. And some women, they can go through surgical menopause because once they have had issues in ovaries or uterus or any female reproductive system, they're forced to go through a surgical menopause, which can happen in any time of women's life. So today, I will start with different stages of a female reproductive life cycle. So the first phase of menstrual cycle starts at the average age of 13, and then we go all the way up to around the age of 47, and we call this as the reproductive age. And then on average, after 47 years, you start transitioning slowly, gradually into menopausal, and that's like from 47 to 51 years, we go through a menopausal transition. And then we come to a complete stop of our menstrual cycle, and that's where we call it as menopause. And for women, as I told you, we deal with a cocktail of hormones. And then all these hormones have to work in synchrony. For example, we have estrogens, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, thyroid, pregnenolone. All these each of these hormones, you can consider them as musicians.
එතන කවුරු හරි ආවේ නැත්නම් ඒකට ගන්නවා. එතන ඒකයි මම ඔයාට ඒ වෙලාවෙම කිව්වේ.
Can I have the participants mute their microphone? Okay, so women deal with a cocktail of hormones, and each of these hormones are considered as musicians in a symphony. And for example, even if one musician goes out of tune, we know the entire symphony is going to be haywire. So that's why we want all these hormones to work in balance to provide women wellness. So the way I have structured this presentation is, first, I'll be talking about the stress and the hormonal imbalances that occurs at any stages of a woman's life. Then I'll be focusing on hormonal imbalance that happens purely in the reproductive age. Then we move on to the hormonal imbalances during menopausal transition as well as menopause. And finally, I'll be wrapping up this session with breast cancer awareness, where I'll be talking about the risk factors, the screening, as well as the preventative measures for breast cancer. So stress can occur at any stages of life, and unfortunately, stress affects both men and women equally, but it goes a little bit extra mile with women, and it affects women because it can cause so many disruptions in our menstrual cycle. So as we live in a globe of stress, and stress is a term we have been talking like multiple times a day, now that everything we see and everything we do tags along with stress, we do struggle to define the stress, and we also struggle to see whether each and every stress we go through is a good stress or a bad stress. So I wanted to focus the next few slides on defining the stress, defining the types of stress, because not all the stresses are bad stresses, because we have good as well as bad stress. Then I'll be talking about the physiology of stress and then the coping mechanism for stress management. Now, first of all, let's define stress. Now, as I told you, we live in a world where everything has become a stress for us. Now, stress recently was defined as any incident or a situation which can cause a disturbance or disturb our equilibrium or homeostasis is known as stress. Now, as I said, stress is always not a bad thing. So if your stress leads to happiness, that means, for example, a stress that's making you excited, that's a happy stress. And we call that as eustress. For example, you're getting married, you're stressed, but that stress causes you an excitement. You're planning to travel somewhere, you're stressed because you have to make all the travel plans, but at the same time, you're excited. Those kind of stress are categorized as eustress. Now, the bad or the sad stress is when the stress comes to the level of distress. And our stress, which can make us anxious. For example, we have a job interview, we don't have a certainty whether we'll get this job interview or not. So that's kind of a stress which will move ourselves from a stress to a distress state. For example, daily commute, some conflicts, financial burdens. These all can be categorized as distress or a bad, sad stress. Now, what happens when we are stressed? Now, stress can vary depending on the type of stresses. For example, we have stress occurring from life events, daily hassles. For example, if you have to commute to work from far away, or chronic stress. Now, some stresses last only for a short period of time, and we call them as acute stresses. And some stresses, for example, like life events, they occur for a pretty long time, and we call them as chronic stress. Now, when our body experiences any type of distress, it's going to stimulate two different systems in our body. One is a nervous system known as sympathetic nervous system, SMS, and also it stimulates hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. Now, when it stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, we are in a stage of fight or flight. It's like you look at it, you see a tiger as you're hiking in a jungle, and then tiger is your stress, and you are in a fight or flight state. Either you fight with the tiger or just fly away from the tiger. And when your hypothalamus and pituitary axis is activated, it orchestrates a series of events, like it will start stimulating hormones like CRH and ACTH. And finally, it will stimulate the gland called adrenal gland, which sits on top of your kidneys. And adrenal gland starts secreting the hormone cortisol. And this is the main stress hormone. Now, is cortisol a bad thing? Of course not. If you have optimal level of cortisol, actually cortisol helps to maintain our bone health. Now, our bones will degenerate as well as regenerate, and cortisol helps to balance the regeneration and degeneration of our bones. Cortisol also helps to regulate our sleep-wake cycle, which is in alignment with the circadian rhythm. I'll be dealing towards the end of this session. Cortisol also helps in weight management. If we have any inflammation in the body, it fights against the inflammation. It balances estrogens and testosterone ratio in our body, and also it regulates the mood. Now, this all good thing happens only when cortisol levels are kept at optimal level. However, if we are under constant stress, for example, from one day to the other, we are consistently stressed due to various factors, then what happens is our HPA axis, it keeps stimulating the adrenal gland which sits on top of our kidney. Now, as it keeps being stimulated, what happens is now the gland goes out of balance, it gets burnt out, and then we get into a condition known as adrenal fatigue. And this adrenal fatigue can cause issues in our menstrual syndrome. And the other thing that can happen is, as your adrenal gland is being stimulated due to the constant and consistent stress that we are going through, it's going to elevate the levels of cortisol. Now, as I said, cortisol, as long as it's at the optimal level, it does good to your body. So it has both ill and well effect. So at optimal level, it does a well effect. When it goes out of balance, when it's out of its threshold, it causes the ill effect. Now, cortisol affects both men and women, but for women, it goes and acts on this neuron known as kisipeptigenic, and this expression is greater in female, and that's the reason why stress affects women more. And this kisspeptigenic neuron is known as the pacemaker for our menstrual cycle. It's needed for the regulation of our menstrual cycle. However, when we have elevated levels of cortisol and they go and mess with this particular neuron, we can start seeing ovulatory dysfunction. And that's why when you are under a stress condition, sometimes you will be experiencing premenstrual symptoms. Like just before your menstruation cycle, you have cramps, you'll have bloating, lower back pains, migraines. You can have premature menopause because menopause is close to around late 40s and early 50s. However, if you are a person who is consistently and constantly stressed, your menopausal age can be pushed earlier, even towards late 30s. And you can also develop some infertility, breast cancer, which I'll be talking about in more detail towards the end of the session. And also because your cortisol will be out of balance, you can hurt your bones. So now, what can we do to cope up with stress? Because we know stress is part and parcel of our life. There's no way we can get rid of our stress. So first thing we can do is to nourish our adrenal glands. The adrenal glands, which is sitting on top of the kidneys, because these are the glands those are secreting the stress hormone cortisol. So we have to make sure we take care of the adrenal glands. So how do we do that? We take foods which are rich in vitamin B complex. We can take some minerals through supplementation such as calcium, copper, magnesium, manganese, selenium. And also we should start eating good fats. Now, I'm not talking about saturated and unsaturated fats. That's all man-made myths. There are only two types of fats, good fats and the bad fats. Good fats are the fats that's coming from the natural sources. Bad fats are any fats that are being processed. So this would comprise of whole grains, legumes, sea salt, leafy green vegetables, plant and animal protein, low fructose food. So these are the nutrients that you will have to incorporate in your daily diet in order to take care of your adrenal glands and to avoid adrenal fatigue. Then the next way of stress management is that you can use some carminative herbs. Now these herbs will reduce the stress levels, and also you can use essential oils as aromatherapy. Carminative herbs actually they reduce your stress levels, and this could be like holy basil, chamomile. So you can either drink these herbs as a herbal tea, or you can infuse them with the black tea or the green tea, whatever the tea you want. But if you're under the stress condition, make sure you take these herb teas or like herb beverages. And also you can pamper yourself with some aromatherapies with some cinnamon, lavender, rose petals. And also you can start taking some supplements from licorice and Asian ginseng. Another way to sort of dampen your stress is to do some mild to moderate workouts. Now, I don't recommend people to, especially women, to do high intensity interval trainings if your body is not trained to do so. But mild to moderate workout can actually dampen your stress levels, such as brisk walking. You can do yoga, body type, like depending on your body type, swimming, jogging, or any kind of stresses. And also hugging your loved one. Now, this is not something that I made up, but that's an evidence-based therapy. Hugging your loved one, it could be your kid, it could be a spouse, it could be a sibling, it could be a friend, it could be your pets. But hugging has shown to reduce the stress levels by increasing the hormone oxytocin, which also like dampen the effect of cortisol. So that's how for women who are dealing with a lot of stress, you could work with some coping stress management. Now, the second section of my talk, I'm going to look into the hormonal imbalances that predominantly happens at the reproductive age. Now, we'll be talking about estrogen, how estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and thyroid are needed for our body, but when they go out of balance, what kind of effect it can cause. Now, during menstruation stage, the main form of estrogen we deal with is E2. Later in this talk, I'll be talking about different forms of estrogen and how they are going to impact our life. However, during menstruation age, that is from around 13 years to around 47 years, we are predominantly governed by the optimum estrogen E2. And depending on our menstrual cycle days, these estrogen levels can rise and fall. And we have to make sure during the cycle, we stay within the optimal level. And optimal estrogen is needed for mental health. It's needed for metabolic health, mental health, as well as aesthetic health. For example, if you look at the heart diseases, men are more vulnerable to heart diseases. At least 21.6% of men are affected by heart disease compared to women who are only affected by 19.5%. And that's thanks to our estrogen, because estrogen reduces the bad cholesterol. It also reduces the levels of homocysteine, one of the markers that causes plaques in our arteries. So estrogen takes care of our cardiovascular disease. It also increases the insulin sensitivity. So the risk at which we develop type 2 diabetes as women is less. It increases the metabolic rate. So you're mostly energized, and women have so many things to juggle around with. And one of the reasons is like their metabolic rate is high, so their energy levels are high. They can deal with a lot of things. That is only when your estrogen levels are at its optimum. And also it helps to maintain the bone density. Now, when it comes to mental health, estrogen plays a very important role in mental health. In women, usually it decreases when the estrogen is at optimal level again. It decreases depression, the irritability, as well as anxiety. And also it helps women to focus more and you reason out more. And also it improves your memory more. For example, if you had a conflict with your spouse, you remember things much better than your husband or somebody else's who is a male. Compared to them, you remember it much better, because if you have because of your better memory that comes from your optimal estrogen. And also optimal estrogen helps the aesthetic health. Women usually have less wrinkles and plump skins, and that's because of their estrogen, which reduces the wrinkles, that increases the blood flow. So you always see their outer appearance are like fresh. And then it also increases the water content of your skin, and also increases the collagen to maintain the elasticity. However, the estrogen can go out of balance too. The estrogen from the optimal level, it can go low or it can go high. Now, low estrogen level is not very common during menstruation age, because it's only common during menopausal transition, which we will be talking later. However, low estrogen can be seen with women who smoke excessively, and also women who take diets which are low in good fats. Now, if you have low estrogen levels during your menstruation age, you will start seeing weight gains in the abdominal area. You will be having a lot of tension, headaches. Your cholesterol, diabetes, they all can get into your way. Your skin starts sagging. You will feel aged, and also you can lose hair. Now, as I mentioned, the low estrogen during menstruation age is very rare unless you go through these excessive smoking and diets low in good fat. However, the most common form of estrogen imbalance is estrogen dominance, where you see excessive estrogen being secreted. The reason we have excessive estrogen is due to lack of fiber. If you don't eat a lot of whole grains, fiber-rich fruits and vegetables, beans, peats, nuts, and legumes in required quantity, then your estrogen can go to the upper level. And also your liver detoxifies your estrogen. So if liver doesn't do the job appropriately, then also you can see estrogen dominance, which I have seen a lot with my clients I deal with. Their liver hormones become so impaired, and then you can see a direct reflection on their estrogen dominance. And if a woman is continuously taking contraceptives, which are birth control pills, then also you can see estrogen dominance. There is another group of compound called as xenoestrogens. Now, these are inevitable because we are living in a world that is full of toxins and contaminants. So we have a lot of xenoestrogens coming from cosmetics, chemicals we use, pesticides, and meats treated with hormone. Now, these estrogens, they mimic the estrogens in our body. So our body starts thinking, oh, that's the estrogen that we are supposed to go with. And then we have an excess estrogen or surplus of estrogen in our blood. Now, when you have and also if you're a person who doesn't exercise a lot, then you can go through estrogen dominance as well. Now, how do you know your estrogen dominance? Usually, I recommend people to do a blood work during any stages of their menstrual cycle to see whether they have the optimal estrogen or their estrogen levels are way off. And also you can see some symptoms like weight gain, because estrogen is a fat storing hormone. So the moment you have excess estrogen, you will start seeing weight gain onto your entire body, unlike just in the abdominal area. You can experience migraine headaches, heavy periods, and also hypothyroidism, where estrogen dominance and hypothyroidism, they are bidirectional. So if you have estrogen dominance, you develop hypothyroidism, and vice versa. If you have hypothyroidism, you also can develop estrogen dominance. And if you can have poor sleep, and also like you will have less sexual drive. Now, how do we overcome estrogen imbalance? I'm going to mainly focus on estrogen dominance because that's the most natural, most normal thing that we see during menstruation age. So you start eating foods which are rich in fiber. Now, when you eat foods which are rich in fiber, it goes and gets fermented in our gut, specifically by one form of the gut microbiota called as estrobolomes. And these estrobolomes, they have a direct contact with our reproductive hormones, like reproductive hormone, mainly estrogen. And that interaction is known as microgenderome. So when you start eating a lot of fiber-rich food, these estrobolomes, the microbiota, start producing an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, and then it will start creating the balance between active and inactive form of estrogen. So once it has enough amount of active and inactive form of estrogen, the gut bacteria, it will start sending signal to our brain through the gut-brain axis, saying, hey, look, there is enough estrogen in our system, or we have insufficient estrogen in our system. And accordingly, you send signals to your ovaries to secrete estrogen. So it's very important that we eat fiber-rich foods to selectively populate these estrobolomes. So then estrogen levels will be regulated. Now, normally you should avoid processed foods, refined foods, and soy products over here. Later during breast cancer, I'll be talking about the effects of soy products, the myth and truth. And you should be avoiding mainly antibiotic treated produce as well if you're having estrogen dominance. Now, the second way you can get the balance back with estrogen dominance is to treat your liver well. Since your liver is the main organ to detoxify your estrogen, you have to make sure certain nutrients are important to detoxify the estrogen. For example, in the first phase of your liver function, the liver will break down your estrogen through the cytochrome P450 system. And in order for it to break down the estrogen, you need certain nutrients such as B complexes, folic acids, magnesium, zinc, and flavonoids. So for my clients, what I do is I ask them to take a multivitamin or multivitamin supplement if their liver is not functioning well and if they see some estrogen dominance. Now, once the estrogen has been broken down by the liver, it also has to be eliminated efficiently. So we need certain nutrients to eliminate the estrogen efficiently, and that mainly includes sulfur-rich amino acids such as cysteines and methionine, and some other minerals and amino acids as well. So we need to provide our liver with proper nutrients in order to eliminate or detoxify the estrogen and bring balance to estrogen dominance. And the next way that we can overcome the estrogen dominance is to avoid xenoestrogens. Now, as I said, xenoestrogens are compounds like estrogens, and those are also known as endocrine disruptors. Women are vulnerable to these xenoestrogens because women tend to use a lot of cosmetics, and cosmetics contain estrogen-like compounds, the xenoestrogens, which can go and interfere with your system. So what you can do is, if you're really into cosmetics, try getting natural products. When it comes to food, try to get clean sources. For example, if you're a meat eater, get some grass-fed meat. If you want to get some eggs, you can go with free-range eggs. Avoid chemical exposure as much as possible and avoid plastics as well. I know most of our research is now focusing on converting these petroleum-based plastics to biodegradable materials. So that will be a breakthrough specifically to bring balance to female estrogen system. Another way that you can bring back balance in your estrogen is to do some physical activity. Now, when it comes to physical activity, one type doesn't fit all. Just because your friend did some high intensity interval training to get her estrogen balance back, it doesn't mean that works for you as well, because we are bio individual and then we have different systems. So whenever you are involved in any physical activity, talk to your body, check on your progress. And if you think you're stretching yourself out of your comfortable zone in terms of physical activity, I would recommend you to come back to your comfortable zone and do the physical activity, which will bring balance to your estrogen dominance. Now that we have spoken about estrogen, progesterone is as equally as important as estrogen, and progesterone is important to balance the estrogen in our system. Now, during reproductive age, the progesterone will be produced mainly through ovaries. However, during menopause, the progesterone will be made in the adrenal gland. Now, progesterone, just like estrogen, progesterone also has its optimal level during different menstrual cycles, and we have to make sure to maintain these concentrations during different cycle days. However, when we have optimum progesterone, it helps in balancing the estrogen, which is its main function. However, it also helps us to maintain a metabolic health. Now, for example, the food that we eat, as it goes down our gastrointestinal system, our entire smooth muscles involved in the gastrointestinal system, they work like a smooth motion, and that motion is called as peristaltic movement. So progesterone makes sure to guide that peristaltic movement and helps the gut to break down the food and absorb the nutrients. And in terms of mental health, progesterone is also important for mood swings, anxiety, and prevent irritability. Now, unlike estrogen, high progesterone levels, imbalances caused by high progesterone level is less likely, unlike you're a woman who is taking a lot of progesterone or its precursor pregnenolone. But low progesterone level is very common, and I have seen in a lot of my clients suffering from low progesterone levels. And if you trace back, they would be people who would be taking a lot of high protein diets. Now, I know diets have become a fashion. That's why I wrote a book on Know Your Diet from a biochemical perspective. So you know why to choose the diet, how to choose the diet, and what to do with diets. Now, women, if they go with a very high protein diet, especially diets rich in arginine types of amino acids, then you can experience low progesterone levels. Also, taking excessive amount of sugar, that is around greater than 30 grams of sugar per day, which comes from processed foods. Or if you are deficient of certain vitamins like A, B6, C, and mineral like zinc, if your prolactin levels are increased, maybe due to pregnancy and post-pregnancy, or you increase the intake of saturated fat, which again comes from your processed food. If you have an elevated levels of stress or you are hypothyroid, all these factors can contribute towards your progesterone levels. So how do we bring back balance to your progesterone level? The main thing is for any hormones to come back to balance, we need to have a balanced diet. Now, this is a picture from one of my clients who was actually suffering from progesterone estrogen imbalance, and she started having a well-balanced diet with whole grains, vegetables, animal, plant protein, as well as nuts and seeds and good fats. And also she enriched her diet with some vitamin A from beef liver, sweet potatoes, or any other sources, vitamin B6 from chickpeas, yellowfin tunas, or chicken breast, or you can take vitamin C from bright colored vegetables, or zinc mainly from marine sources, as well as pumpkin seeds. So if you want to bring back your progesterone levels higher, I mean to the optimal level, then you have to make sure you take a balanced diet enriched with all these vitamins and minerals. Now, just like progesterone and estrogen, testosterone is also important to female health. Now, many people might think, okay, testosterone is a male hormone. How is it going to contribute towards female health? The truth is that estradiol, the E2, one of the forms of estrogen, is produced from your testosterone. This is the biochemical pathway. So the precursor is cholesterol for our steroidal hormone. And then it goes around the circle, and then testosterone contributes towards the production of estradiol, mainly E2 of estrogen. And we have to maintain an optimum testosterone level. because testosterone has impacts on bone health as well as mental health. It takes care of bone health very well because it reduces your bone deterioration. With age, we tend to deteriorate. Our bone mineral density goes down, and optimal levels of testosterone helps to keep the bone mineral density at an optimal level. It also increases the muscle mass and strength, muscle tone, as well as maintain the bone density and reduce the deterioration with age. And in terms of mental health, testosterone is known to provide the self-confidence that women usually have. It gives you that drive, gives you the motivation, improves your memory, and also it enhances your emotional status. So in order to enjoy the benefits of testosterone, you have to make sure to keep the testosterone at its optimal level. Now, testosterone, as I said, just like other hormones, it can be either low or high. So if you have low levels of testosterone due to stress, or you're taking any birth control pills, or if you're also into some anti-cholesterol medication, because testosterone is being synthesized from cholesterol, and the moment you start taking cholesterol-lowering medication, the amount of testosterone that will be produced in your body will be less as well. So that can also reduce the levels of testosterone. Depression can cause lower levels of testosterone, and psychological trauma. Usually, if you have experienced any drastic events, adverse effects in your life, which has psychologically brought you some pain and trauma, that also can reduce your testosterone levels. And how do you boost your testosterone levels? Especially take diets with good calories, mainly from good biological value protein sources. These are mainly non-plant-based proteins with high biological values. You can supplement yourself with some zinc and do some light to moderate activity and regulate your sleep, which is important to maintain your testosterone levels. Now, there could be incidences where your testosterone can be overproduced too. If your ovaries and adrenal glands are working a little bit weird, then you can start producing increased levels of testosterone. In that case, you can bring your testosterone levels low by increasing the soy product intake, taking some mint, adding mint, fresh mint into your food. You can take some licorice roots, add some flax seeds, add some nuts, mainly almonds and walnuts. Now, thyroid is another important hormone which affects women a lot and is known as the energy regulator. It affects women at least 5 to 8 times more than it would affect the men. And also 1 in 8 women, at least at some point in their life, they'll start developing thyroid. Now, thyroid is stimulated from the pituitary gland, the thyroid stimulating hormone. So pituitary gland secretes the thyroid stimulating hormone, which comes and acts on the thyroid gland, which is at the neck, which is like a little almond. And then it starts activating T3 and T4, 2 different types of thyroid hormones. And these go and directly impact your ovaries. So ovaries have your thyroid receptors, and then the moment your thyroid goes and attaches to the receptors in the ovaries, your ovarian cycle or your menstrual cycle will get regulated. Now, thyroid is important for energy metabolism. So it makes sure that the food is digested well and the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals are being absorbed very well. And also it helps in the heat regulation. Since it aids in the metabolism, it makes sure it maintains the temperature of the body. And also it controls the hormones because it has several receptors in various parts of our organs. Now, thyroid, as most people know, either we suffer from hyperthyroidism, where your thyroid hormones are being excessively secreted, or we suffer from hypothyroidism, where we have less of a thyroid being stimulated. Now, when you have hyperthyroid, that means your thyroid is being excessively stimulated. You will usually see light or absent menstrual cycle. You will start losing weight at a much higher rate. And also, since it regulates your metabolism and energy, you will always feel warm and you start sweating excessively. You feel tired, and also you can get into a lot of mental instability. In contrast, if you have hypothyroidism, where your thyroid hormones are being functioned, like thyroid function is less, then you can start seeing premenstrual syndrome, where just before your menstrual cycle, you will have like heavy pain on your back, or you can have abdominal bloating, you can have abdominal pain, irritability, or during your menstrual cycle, you can also have heavy periods or excessive or painful menstrual cycles. With hypothyroidism, you can also start developing endometriosis, which is an outgrowth of the cells in the reproductive system. You experience frequent migraine type headaches, and also you can go through mental instability. A very apparent feature that you can see for people suffering from hypothyroidism is they have a puffy eyes, mainly near their eyes, under the eyes, near the earlobes. You can see the puffiness, and then it's a sign that you're developing hypothyroidism. Now, how do we bring thyroid to balance? If you are secreting excessive amount of thyroid hormone, that is hyperthyroidism, make sure you dampen or you reduce the secretion of these thyroid hormones by taking cruciferous vegetables and green leafy vegetables such as cabbage, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, and also you can take unprocessed soy foods such as soybeans, tofus, edamames, or even like tempehs, which are like fermented tofus, an Indonesian-based product. So you can take these foods if you have hyperthyroidism. That means your thyroid hormone is being secreted excessively. However, if you experience hypothyroidism, where your thyroid hormones are secreted less, then you have to enrich your food with iodine-rich foods. At least you need to take 150 micrograms per day. That's the required dietary allowance. And this can come from seafoods like cod, seaweeds, oysters, iodized salts, yogurt, milk, beef liver. And also, if you're experiencing hypothyroidism, which means your thyroid function is less, then you make sure to avoid cruciferous vegetables like cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and also avoid soy products. Now that we have looked into the hormonal imbalances during reproductive age, next section I'll be focusing on the hormonal imbalances that occurs as we transition from reproductive age to menopause. Now this happens, now this is the time I always tell women, this is the time for you to focus on yourself, because you have been running after your family, your parents, your kids, your in-laws, your siblings. So this is the time of your life that you have to take a step back, focus on yourself, and strike a balance between being selfless and selfish. You can't be selfless, you can neither be selfless nor be selfish, but you have to strike a balance, because this is the time of your life you're going to see drastic changes in your system. Since your ovarian function declines, you will start seeing changes in your estrogen levels, progesterone levels, and testosterone levels. So during menstruation cycle, your ovaries started producing E2. However, when you transition from your menstruation age into your menopausal, the E2, the form of estrogen, will be predominantly reduced, and estrone, it will be stopped producing from your ovaries, and your fat cells will start producing E1, which is going to be an issue during menopause, and it's also known as cancer marker, which I'll be talking more during the breast cancer session. And your progesterone levels also changes, because your progesterone is not going to be made from ovaries. So now progesterone switches the gears. It's going to be produced from your adrenal gland. So if you're a person who is a lot stressed during this time of your life, during your menopausal transition, you can go through adrenal fatigue, which can also impair your progesterone levels. And also your testosterone is going to be secreted from your adrenal gland compared to your ovaries, because ovaries are going to reduce your function. So as you see, you are seeing a drastic change as you move from menstruation age to your menopausal transition and menopausal age, because most of your hormones are going to be switching gears, where they are not going to be produced by ovaries, and they are going to be produced by adrenal glands. So their effects are going to be different in your body, unlike it used to be. How do you know that you're facing menopausal symptoms or you're gearing towards menopause? First thing, if you have irregular menopausal cycles for a long period of time and you haven't had a cycle for complete 1 year, that's the time you can think that you're moving towards menopause, and also if you take your blood work, it will show high levels of follicular stimulating hormones and luteinizing hormones, FSH and LH. And also when you're transitioning into your menopausal stage, you will have a lot of difference in your metabolic health, mental health, as well as bone and aesthetic well-being. For example, in your metabolic health, you wouldn't have a lot of appetite to eat. You would be eating a less quantity, but still you will feel indigested, bloated, and you will have a lot of flatulence or gas. And even if your quantity of eating is less, you start seeing an exponential growth of your weight. Your weight will start rising up. And some women I know, they suffer from binge eating and food cravings. That would also again contribute towards their weight gain. Now, in terms of mental health, this is the time of your life where you start saying, I'm not the same person who used to be focusing so much, who used to be having so much memory, because you start to feel that you're mentally falling apart because you're unable to focus, you're losing your memory, you're having mood swings, you're going through depressions, frequent headaches. So this is the time of your life you're starting to fall apart, and you have to make sure you take charge of your health and put yourself together. And for women who are transitioning through this stage, you also would see a lot of hot flushes, mainly in the night. And when it comes to bone and aesthetic well-being, because of your transition, your hormones are going to be imbalanced, or they are going to switch gears from ovaries to adrenal gland. You start seeing a lot of joint aches, and also you start feeling the soreness in your joints, and you see like your shoulders, your joints are being frozen and they are like cracking. On top of it, you also start slouching. That means you will have a slump posture, which needs to be reversed. And you start seeing the wrinkles, sagging cheeks, dry scalp, hair thinning. So all these changes you will see as you move from your menstruation age towards your menopausal transition, as well as the menopausal age. Now, in people I have dealt with personally, I try to make them go through a smooth transition from a menstruation age to a menopausal stage, because the transition has to be smooth in order to welcome that change in your life. So the first thing you need to take care of is a balanced diet. Make sure you take whole foods like whole grains, legumes, plant, animal proteins. And also during menopausal transition, you'll have a lot of sleep disturbances. And research has time and time again proved that melatonin-rich foods can help menopausal women alleviate the symptoms of sleep disturbances. So melatonin-rich foods could be plant foods such as nuts and mushrooms. And also one of the recent research says eating white mushrooms, they are known as psychedelics, which are good for your mental health. That also will help to regulate the melatonin levels and your sleep cycle, especially during your menopausal transition. And you should start eating a lot of germinated legumes, animal products, especially eggs and fish from good sources. That means like wild-caught fishes and free-range eggs. You also have to make sure you reduce your stress levels, because as you know, when you go into a menopausal stage, most of your hormones are going to be produced by the adrenal gland, the same gland that produces cortisol. So at this point, if you are at a very elevated level of stress, then you can easily catch adrenal fatigue. So in order to reduce the adrenal fatigue, you have to make sure you reduce your stress levels. Also, and if you haven't done any physical workout for your entire life, this is the time of the life you take charge of your health and do some mild to moderate workout to maintain a mental stability and also to maintain a weight. So weight management is important during this transition, because at this transition, your weight would exponentially tend to increase. And the other important thing is you align with your circadian clock. Now, circadian rhythm and human biological system is a topic by itself, but here I'll be just talking only superficially. But you have to make sure you align your circadian clock. So you regulate your sleep-wake cycle and also eating pattern. Don't be the type of women who would eat, who can eat all the time during the day. So just put yourself into a pattern where you will have a regulated and designated sleep-wake cycle and eating pattern. And also during this transition, it's a good idea to have your hormones tested regularly. because your hormones can go, they can rise and fall abruptly, and that rise and fall can happen very frequently as well. So you have to make sure to check your hormonal level, do your blood work, check your hormonal levels to see where you are at, and depending on that, you can tailor your balancing method. And another important therapy is the hormonal replacement therapy. Now, this is for any woman who is going through a menopausal transition or anyone who has had a surgical menopause at any point in their life. You should go for a hormonal replacement therapy, work with your nutrition or healthcare provider to see how you can bring back balance to your hormones to avoid further diseases, because this is the time you might develop a lot of cardiometabolic diseases because your estrogen is not being secreted optimally. So you can get diabetes, heart diseases, as well as your bones can go haywire. So you can get osteoporosis. So this has to be an integrated therapy with diets as well as good lifestyle practices. Now that we have covered the sessions almost like around stress, the hormonal imbalances, the final section of this presentation, I want to dig a little bit more on breast cancer, since October is a month of breast cancer awareness month, and we know a lot of women, they suffer from breast cancer. Now, what are the causes of breast cancer? Of course, a poor diet, a diet rich in processed foods, and women who smoke and take a lot of alcohol, they are more vulnerable to developing breast cancer. And if you don't have an active lifestyle, if you are very lethargic, you have a sedentary lifestyle, you don't move yourself much, you don't sweat yourself, then you are also vulnerable to catching breast cancer. And also, if you have a disrupted circadian rhythm where your life is like all over your day, so you are not self-disciplined in a way, so that will also contribute. That's also one of the risk factors towards developing breast cancer. Now, how is breast cancer developed? Now, especially for women who secrete excess level of estrogen. Now, estrogen, any hormone, when they are at their optimal level, they bring about well effect to our system. However, when they go out of balance, that's where they cause ill effect to our system. And estrogen is one of those culprits. When you have excess levels of estrogen, which is mainly secreted from ovaries or secreted from the fat cells, mainly of the obese women, then what happens is the estrogen goes and kindles or it messes with the breast cell. When it messes with the breast cell starts proliferating, which causes a lump that gets converted into a cancerous region, and you start developing breast cancer. So any women who has been identified being estrogen dominant, or any women with excess body fat, especially you have a higher body mass index, you are at higher risk in developing breast cancer. Now, this was a recent cancer epidemiology study done by a group in China in 2015. They did a life course study over 26 years in Chinese women population to see how the risk of developing breast cancer increases with increasing body mass index. So as you see a steady increase. So as your body mass index increases, your risk of developing breast cancer also increases. So you have to make sure to calculate your body mass index and make sure to stay within their range to avoid catching breast cancer. Now, how do you assess breast cancer? For anyone who is highly at risk in developing breast cancer, a person who has a poor diet or who has an immediate family member who has already had a history of breast cancer, such as mom or a female sibling, or somebody who is more on alcohol than drugs, or somebody who is very obese, you are at a risk of developing breast cancer. So it will be a good idea at some point in your life to do a mammography, which is commonly used, where they take pictures of your interior breast to see like any abdominal growth in your breast. MRIs are also done, but this is done only for women who are at high risk. Like if the doctor clearly knows that you are at high risk because you are a woman who has been having a bad diet and a lifestyle practice, then they usually go for MRI. Another way you can check your breast cancer is by doing a blood work. You can check for tumor markers such as cancer antigen CA15, 3 or 27, 29, or carcinoembryonic antigen CEA. On top of it, if you're really concerned about checking your breast, you can do a clinical examination. You can consult your general physician where she or he will do a physical breast examination to see if you have any abnormalities like lumps in your breast. There's also another commonly used method called thermography, where they start to sense the temperature around your breast. So in breast cancer cells, when the cancer develops, that particular area, the temperature of that particular area will be elevated. So thermography is an identification to see whether you have any lumps at any point of your breast cells. And also they do tissue sampling. So they scrape out the tissues from your breast cells and then observe it under the microscope to see whether it's a benign or malignant to conclude whether it's a breast cancer or not. Now, I always believe prevention is better than cure. Now, the moment you are diagnosed with breast cancer, there are so many ways that you can reverse the breast cancer, like chemotherapies, radiotherapies, but then that's also going to give a lot of side effects. So since prevention is better than cure, I always tell women, in order to avoid any type of cancer, take foods which are rich in antioxidants because those are known as free radical scavengers, and we are exposed to a lot of free radicals, and these can go and quench the free radicals and prevent the DNA damage, such as bright colored food like citrus fruits, vegetables and fruits containing beta carotenes, lycopene-rich vegetables and fruits such as tomato, watermelons, and grapefruit. And also make sure to optimize your liver function. So if you're doing any blood work, make sure you test your liver function as well, because liver is the main detoxification organ, especially when it comes to your estrogen levels. So you have to make sure your liver is taken care of you have to pamper your liver with some cruciferous vegetables. They have a compound known as sulforaphane, and this will help to detoxify the liver. You also can take a lot of non-cruciferous vegetables such as ginger, green beans, green onions, all good stuffs to pamper your liver and make sure that detoxifies your liver, detoxifies your enzymes well. And also for women who do not have the luxury to take a lot of calorie-rich foods, I usually prescribe them with calcium, vitamin D3, fish oils, and also sulforaphane if they are not very excited about eating cruciferous vegetables. Because some women, they don't like the taste and the flavor and the aroma of cruciferous vegetables. Only in that case, I tell them to take sulforaphane just to make sure that they detoxify their liver well. And a very important thing to prevent the occurrence of breast cancer is to maintain an ideal body mass index. Because women tend to gain weight, especially when they are transitioning from menstruation age to menopausal stage. So when you're transitioning from that, make sure you maintain an ideal body mass index, especially by doing some physical activities, not only to manage your weight, but also to bring your mental stability. And with breast cancer and soy products, there's always been controversial findings. There has always been controversial findings on breast cancer and soy products. So, for example, soy products, initial stages of research has shown soy products are not beneficial or they increase the risk of breast cancer. However, later, now the research has substantiated that soy products are anti-cancer agents. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper here, so then you will never forget that soy products are anti-cancer agents. Now, as I mentioned, estrogen, we have three different forms, E1, E2, and E3. And we have two receptors, alpha and beta, in our body, which will bind to, which these estrogens will bind to. Now, the alpha receptor increases the cell growth, whereas beta receptor decreases the cell growth. Now, E1, which is the predominant form during the menopausal transition and menopause, it goes and binds to alpha receptor to increase the cell growth. However, the E2, which is usually produced during our menstruation stage, that that goes and binds directly to alpha as well as beta. It equally binds, so it balances the cell growth as well as cell depletion. Now, E3, the other form of estrogen, it goes and binds to beta and decreases the cell growth. Now, especially when you're in menopausal stage, you have a lot of E1, less of E2, and more moderate amount of E3. Sorry. E1 has a lot of stimulatory effect on breast cancer. So the moment during menopausal, when you have a lot of E1, it will go and act on your breast cells and start secreting a lot of growth on breast cells, causing cell growth. However, the soy product comes as a remedy for such effect because the soy isoflavones that's been isolated, they have the same structure as E3. So since the soy isoflavone has the same structure as E3, the moment you start eating a lot of soy products, it goes and binds to the beta receptors, causing a balance between cell growth and cell depletion. And then it brings balance and it prevents the excessive growth in the breast cancer cells and act as anti-cancer agent. So the research has substantiated in the recent days that soy products act as anti-cancer agent, and soy is not a bad product to protect against breast cancer. But the key here is when you choose soy products, you have to make sure that you choose less processed soy products, because the moment you start like choosing highly processed soy products like highly processed soy milk or soy sauces, that's where you will get into issues. So as long as you take less processed soy products like soy chunks, beans, tofu, edamames or tempeh, then your risk of developing breast cancer will be less. With that, I would like to sum up this talk by introducing Women Wellness Wheel. Now, when I say Women Wellness Wheel can work in harmony only when the hormones are in balance. So for you to have a well-defined Women Wellness Wheel, you need to make sure to get a clean diet, involve yourself in moderate physical activities, try to engage yourself in one or more relaxation techniques, allocate time for yourself, and also screen for diseases. Do your blood work time to time to check where you are at your hormonal levels, as well as your cancer markers or tumor markers, and also your mental health. And also make sure you create a supportive environment around you. It may be a family environment, it may be a work environment, but either way, you try to have a supportive environment. This doesn't have to be coming from men, because we know like some toxic environments are created in an environment where we have a lot of women too, unfortunately. So make sure we empower women and create a very supportive environment in order to make sure women travel this wellness wheel in harmony. With that, I end my session and we open this talk for discussion. Thank you. Any questions from the audience?
Doctor, if we want to see you, where can we channel you?
Okay, let me leave my contact details. Okay, let me drop off my contact details so you can you can either send me a message, a WhatsApp message, or you can just send me an email. So I have given my email address in the chat box. And my WhatsApp contact number. Any questions from the audience? Please feel free to unmute yourself. Let's make this a discussion session.
Doctor, did you mention where we can channel you?
Dr. Dinusha or Thamudi, do we see any questions?
Nilu, there are questions posted in the chat box. I think you can answer those, right?
I think somebody has asked about flaxseed. Rumaiza Nafas, are you in the call?
Yes, I'm here. I just want to know how we can consume, like during what part of our cycle we have to consume flax seeds and how we can.
Hello? Okay, I see Runaiza Nafaz has asked about flax seeds, who could consume flax seeds. For any of you who have heard of seed cycling, it's not a trend, but seed cycling has become very common. What they do is like during your menstrual cycle, to make sure your hormones are in balance, you use different cycles such as basil seeds, flax seeds, and also pumpkin seeds. You don't have to be specific on flax seeds unless anyone can consume flax seeds unless you are flaxseed intolerant, which is highly unlikely. However, when you consume flax seeds, make sure you soak them in water to get rid of the anti-nutrients that are available in flax seeds. And flax seeds are also known as hygroscopic substances, where they start absorbing water and form like a gel-like compound. So you make sure you make them more easily digestible form and then consume flax seeds.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Hello, doctor. I want to know that if the upper
Another question here. Somebody is asking: having both my parents having cancer, is this a high risk for children? Well, yes and no, because cancer is not a inherited disease, but if you have an immediate family, if you have an immediate family member who suffers from cancer, then highly likely that your cells can be mutated as well. However, the good news is you can reverse that through proper lifestyle practices. So it doesn't mean if your parents have cancers that you will necessarily get cancer, because our genetic makeovers can also be reversed through proper lifestyle practices. Only thing is, for people who have immediate family members suffering from cancer, will have to make sure to put themselves into a well-disciplined food and lifestyle practice.
Hello.
Somebody is asking, my mom had both breast cancer and dad had colon cancer. Yes. So as I said, it will be useful to put yourself and as well as your next generation into a proper diet and lifestyle practices. Make sure you take well-balanced diet and also diets rich in antioxidants. Eat a clean diet to make sure you are not being polluted or intoxicated with toxicants that are available. Okay, there's another question asking about caffeine. Is it okay to take caffeine to combat low metabolism? Will it affect us, especially during menopause? Okay, so too much of anything is good for nothing. As I said, any food at its optimal level is fine. So caffeine as well as your tea, they have polyphenols, which helps in increasing the metabolism. Now, the problem here is if you drink tea as tea and caffeine as caffeine, but what we do is we add a lot of milk, dairy products, and coffee mates and all sorts of things that's in the market. We dump them into our cup of coffee or cup of tea, and then we call caffeine to be a bad thing. So if you drink coffee as coffee and tea as tea, so drink them alone or leave them alone. As long as you do that, I think your metabolism, you don't have to worry about being caffeine intoxicated. Okay, I have somebody, Zahira, has been asking about ovarian cyst. Okay, so ovarian cyst, are you developing, I really need to be very clear on this. Is it polycystic ovarian cyst you are talking about? Zahira, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, ma'am. That not the polycystic. I want to know about just a cyst.
So depending on the type of cyst, your treatment will also be different, and you can actually overcome the polycystic ovarian cyst if at all that's what you have developed. Again, through proper, there are some herbs and some lifestyle food which can actually reduce your occurrence of polycystic ovarian cyst.
Yes. What kind of food that we can go to reduce the ovarian cyst?
Okay, I have another question here. Scanning for breast, is it okay instead of mammograms? So mammograms are usually done. You can scan, if you're going for an MRI scan, make sure that you are not pregnant or you're not taking any medications. And your MRI, the radiographer will instruct you what to do before you take your MRI. But as I mentioned, if you are only a person who is at high risk, say for example, like you are someone who is obese and who has like estrogen dominance, or you have a sedentary lifestyle practice, or you have an immediate family member, then you can go for MRI. If not, your mammography is more than enough to screen for breast cancer. Okay. Dr. Dinusha might be helpful, or anyone from Sri Lanka might be helpful for this. So somebody is asking, Fasina, may I know any breast cancer screening programs at National Hospital of Sri Lanka? Can anyone help Fasiha on this? Dr. Dinusha?
Yes, right. We will look into it.
Yes, there is a clinic in Narahimpita. They do it free. You can go there.
Doctor, can I ask a question, please?
Can you speak louder? I don't think I can hear you.
Hello. Hello, doctor. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Doctor, if I know I used to have PCR, but my periods are regular. But now, since late, I'm putting on a lot of weight on my bust and below the waist. What shall I do, doctor? What do you?
How old are you? Will you mind me asking that?
28.
Oh, okay. Okay. Have you checked your hormone levels, like your estrogens, progesterones, your cortisol levels? Have you done a blood work?
Once I did it, doctor, but what do you want me to do, doctor?
So you will have to do a complete blood work to see where you are at your hormonal levels.
Yeah.
And depending on that, then we can advise you like what to do, how to, I believe from what you're saying is you might be estrogen dominant, but we might have to go a little bit deeper. So you might have to do a complete blood work to answer you better.
That is, doctor, what's the test I should take a complete blood test?
Okay, you'll have to take the estrogen, the estradiol, that's E2, progesterone.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to do your cortisol levels, liver profile, and also you will have to do your thyroid hormone TSH as well as T3 and T4.
Doctor, how can you just put it on the screen, doctor? I will write it down, please.
Sure, I'll do that.
And then, doctor, how can we contact you, doctor, with the report?
Okay. Dr. Dinusha, can you help me on this? How do they connect with me? Dr. Dinusha?
What do you want, Nilu?
So they are like the participants, they are asking if they can connect with me.
Yeah.
So do we have the list of participants, or like how I can drop my email and my WhatsApp number, but I don't know like how far it's going to work.
No, we have the list of participants, but we don't know their personal details, right? I mean, like
Yes.
their contact details.
Yes, yes. So maybe, okay, I'll drop my email once again in the chat box.
Okay, doctor, once I take the report, once I take the test, can I send you the report and then find out, because I'm in Dubai, doctor.
Yes, please. Yes.
Then you can advise me what to do, no, doctor?
Yes, exactly.
Suddenly I have started putting on, like I go for exercises, I do everything, but you know, from my bust and below the waist, I've suddenly put on a lot.
Yeah, I think you have a hormonal imbalance going on. So.
Okay, doctor. Then
Yeah.
please put it on, and thank you very much, doctor.
Sure. Any other questions?
Ma'am, what is the condition with a person who has a Mirena coil in? Will there be a hormone imbalance? Should we worry about it? Like, should we check regularly the hormone levels?
Yes. So I usually, for my clients, I usually recommend them to do a complete hormonal, the blood work, like every 6 months, just to make sure that your hormones are imbalanced. So yes, you're highly likely to go haywire in terms of your hormones, and it's also good to check it periodically.
Thank you, ma'am.
Samudi?
What happened to Tamil?
Yes, yes, madam. At the end of one webinar session, and now I would like to invite Head of Department of Chemistry, the Senior Lecturer of the College of Chemical Sciences, Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, the Secretary of the WCC, Dr. Gopika Tirupuranathar, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Samudi. I hope I'm audible. Good evening to all of you. It is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Women Chemist Committee of the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, to those who contributed immensely to successfully organizing the first webinar for the Council year 2022-2023. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our guest speaker, Dr. Nilu Sivapragasam, for sparing her valuable time with us today, despite her busy schedule, and providing an interesting and informative talk. Personally, I learned a lot. I hope the audience also learned. My sincere thanks to Dr. Siddiq Iqbal for the timely help, and special thanks to Professor Priyani Parnagama, the chairperson of the Women Chemist Committee, Mr. NMS Hettigedara, President of the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, and all the Women Chemist Committee members for their valuable support and guidance. I am very grateful to Dr. Dinusha Udupella for introducing our guest speaker. I would like to extend my appreciation to Ms. Samudi Newmali for comparing the event and her support in organizing this webinar. Last but not least, I take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to all who have joined us today via Zoom. Thank you all. Over to you, Tamil.
Thank you, madam. And thank you all for joining with us. Let's meet again on our next webinar session. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.